pieces of the acetyl salicylic acid. So to me, this is a definite that it's dissolving. It's just taking some shaking and stirring and more solvent. Now let's try it on the acetaminophen. Again, we're adding sodium bicarbonate. The other end. And then I'm going to add a little more. And I may have contaminated it with my stirring rod because I had ethyl acetate on it. So I'm going to redo that real quickly and get a fresh stirring rod. So that was the acetaminophen. You always want to make sure you're opening the correct bottle. Acetaminophen, I use this spatula so I don't cross-contaminate. And I'm going to put in a little bit more so we can see what's going on. Put the lid back on my reagent bottle so I don't contaminate. And now we are adding sodium bicarbonate. Let's see what it's going to do. That's a milliliter. And you can see, I think my ethyl acetate on the stirring rod because I reused it and it came out of that mixture. I think it was dissolving the acetaminophen, because it doesn't look like the sodium bicarbonate is dissolving it at all. You can see that you have solute particles still floating, so I'm going to add a little bit more. Well, I may have to go get some more. Sodium bicarbonate. Okay. So again, let's add a little sodium bicarbonate. You can see when I stir it after adding this, it's still every bit as white or cloudy looking as it was the first time I added it. That's a definite indicator. When you've seen me dissolve the others, they have not gone in. Everything's finely dispersed. So we're going to let that settle to verify that it's not dissolving. This one is definitely dissolving the acid. So just to verify that, I've got a fresh stirring rod. I'm going to get a fresh test tube, another pea-sized amount of the acetyl salicylic acid. There's my amount. I'm going to add my sodium bicarbonate. And this is what it looked like when you were trying to do this. So again, we're going to really have to use a stirring rod. See if we can't make this dissolve. And definitely we had more whitish particles on that acetylsalicylic acid than I'm seeing right now. So let's add a little more sodium bicarbonate. See if we can't get all that to dissolve. Yeah. And you should be seeing a difference from when I first started adding it. So it's definitely, we're having to work to get it to dissolve, but it is soluble. Let's go back to our acetaminophen. And you can see, it looked like it had dissolved, but when you let it settle, no. I still have the same amount of solid on the bottom of that test tube I had before. So this is definitely not soluble. Acetaminophen is not soluble in the sodium bicarbonate, whereas this is. And just let's see if we can get it all to dissolve. I think we did it that time. Do you see any of the particles at this point? So we just had to really put enough solvent in there to dissolve it. So you may have to use more solvent than you saw me use here, or that you used when you tried the introductory experiment today. But definitely when I pull my stirring rod out, that's it. These are pretty much bubbles. Maybe a little bit of the solid, but it's definitely soluble. There's nothing on the bottom. It has a definite, most of it's gone, whereas when you look at this, you can see all that solid still left over, not soluble. So acetaminophen is not soluble in the sodium bicarbonate. Acetylsalicylic acid is soluble in the sodium bicarbonate. So I'll move this over so you can see what we're doing for our solvent. Acetaminophen did not dissolve in this. Acetylsalicylic acid did dissolve in it. Now the thing what you want to try next is, I'm going to get a bigger test tube because I'm maxed out on that one. Has somebody reading my test tubes? We're going to use a bigger test tube because I want you to see what's going to happen, if anything. So yeah, it was soluble. There's nothing left in that, and that's what we had in that test tube with acetylsalicylic acid. So sodium bicarbonate dissolved it. I want to see if I can recrystallize it by adding 6 molar hydrochloric acid. So at this point, and we're going to add this dropwise. That's just the base neutralizing the acid. That's not anything happening with the acetylsalicylic acid. Or is it? Do you see how I recrystallized the acetaminophen? It's at the top. The bubbles are just the CO2 from the acid-base neutralization. But this was, maybe you can see it on the pink better. It recrystallized when I added acid back to the solution. It forced the acetylsalicylic acid to precipitate, if you want to think of it that way. And I'll keep adding. Let it react. Whoop, I got a little too wild. But you can see the acid that recrystallized, and I'm going to push that back down in, or I'll just pull some of it out. That is the acetylsalicylic acid recrystallized once I added acid back into the solution. So definitely it was dissolved in the base, the sodium bicarbonate. As soon as I added 6 molar hydrochloric acid, what started happening? I precipitated the acid back out. So I can dissolve the acetylsalicylic acid in base, and when I want to recover the acid, I can add 6 molar HCl. And that's the introductory activity. And I'm Dr. Lagrone.